Hello and welcome to the Educational Fix podcast. I'm Lyle. Today, the educational fix that I'd like to talk about is movement breaks. Movement breaks are so important to our classrooms. It is very, very tedious to sit in a classroom in a chair at a desk for hours and hours and hours. And some of our students need the opportunity to get up and stretch their limbs to break their extended concentration so that they can revitalize their senses and then come back so that they can learn more. A lot of our students, especially students with disabilities, really benefit from these movement breaks. It allows us to stop what we're doing, reset our minds, reset and calibrate ourselves so that we can refocus again. Especially when oftentimes right before that movement break has occurred, that student or students, it could be the entire class even, has lost attention. They're really not that receptive to what's happening in the classroom, and they may not even be listening. They may be quiet and compliant, but their minds are not active. So inserting a movement break into your classroom is really important to allow them to stretch, activate their minds, activate their senses so that they can come back to their place of stability that allows them to be prepared to receive more learning. So that's a little bit about what movement breaks are. They're just a chance for students to sometimes stretch. Sometimes they're called stretch breaks if you're only having them stretch, but they could be little songs that you play. It could be a little activity that you have them do. It could be an exercise routine. It could be a dance. Music could be involved or not involved. They can hit one of the most popular dance moves of the day, and then they sit down and join the class for more learning. So what problems does this movement break solve? Oftentimes, what I hear from teachers and what I see in the classroom is that students don't have a very long attention span. And the reality is that most experts suggest that you should only expect attention from a student in line with how many years they have. So if the student is 5 years old, you should really expect only about 5 minutes of attention at a time. If the student is 13 years old, you should really only expect 13 minutes of attention at a time. And so because of that, and the fact that your lessons are usually a half an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what subject you're teaching and where you're teaching, it's a good idea to insert some movement breaks in that time so that those students aren't being distracted. Because what happens during that distraction period, after that 13-minute period is up, or that 5-minute period is up of sustained attention, their minds are going to wander. They're going to start bothering their materials. They're going to start fiddling with things. They're going to start going to sleep. They're going to tune you out. They may start behaving in ways that are distracting or disruptive to the classroom day. They may disrupt their peers at that time. So it's really important to increase their productivity and their attention as much as possible by inserting movement breaks during your day. And once those movement breaks become a part of that routine, you'll notice that because the students are expecting that movement break, they're going to allow themselves to, or they're going to try to force themselves to sustain their attention for longer because they know they're going to have an opportunity to stretch and release their frustration in a positive and teacher-approved way, rather than them bothering their peers or distracting themselves. So the question is, how is a movement break actually implemented in a classroom? Well, sometimes you would want to put a movement break in between transitions, but it could also be a time where you just feel like the classroom has lost focus And it could be a transition during the middle of a lesson, or it could be a transition at the end of a lesson and before the next lesson. So it could be really at any time that you feel it's necessary, but it's best to have them as a part of your routine. So it could be a time to say, get up and stretch, takes 30 seconds to stretch, takes 1 minute to stretch, and movement breaks don't really need to take longer than 2 minutes to do. So you can ask your students to take 1 minute to stretch, 1 minute to turn their head, 1 minute to touch their toes. They can hit their favorite dance moves. You can play a 30-second song so that they can relax and get their jitters out. You can have them stand up. It could be a class song that they all know, or it could be something that they all sing together, or it could just be a quiet thing that you do in your classroom. But just giving them that opportunity is incredibly important. Because when you do, you'll notice that after they've given you sustained attention for a long time, them being allowed to stop what they're doing and then move around, hit a dance move, stretch, touch their toes, exercise, will allow them to restart that sustained attention cycle over again really quickly. And that way you'll have less distractions in your classroom. And the students will most likely perform better because they are paying attention for longer periods of time. And when that movement break is done, all you have to say is, let's resume. They'll get back to their seats or whatever you had them do, and then you'll start your lesson or continue your lesson again. So that is today's Educational Fix. Thank you for joining the Educational Fix podcast. I hope that you use this fix today in your classroom. If you're interested, please check out my book, So Thriving Special Education. Thank you very much for listening today, and I hope to see you soon.